Hello, this is Stephen Poe with the University of Arizona. Today's topic is nutrition and healthy living. These guidelines were designed with the 2010 information that came out from USDA. The target population continues to be Americans ages 2 and older and who are in apparently good health. However, both these children and adults now are exposed to an increased risk of developing diet-related chronic disease. So there's two new overarching concepts that have been distilled from the DGAC, which is the Dietary Guidelines, and those are maintain calorie balance over time to achieve and sustain a healthy weight, and to focus on consuming nutrient-dense foods and beverages. You are what you eat. The food you eat is a source of energy and nutrition for your body. Eating should be a pleasurable experience, not one that causes guilt or remorse. Getting enough food is not really our problem, but getting the right kind of nutrition is. So, what do you need to eat to stay healthy? Nearly everybody has an opinion. For sure, your mom told you that you needed to eat your vegetables. Well, according to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, Americans spend an average of 12.5% of their budget on food each year, and yet many still find access to good food diminished. The price of food is closely related to the initial cost of that food's ingredient. However, the energy created by the food has to be taken into account with the fuel and transportation costs to get it to market. And in this country we have particularly good access to food. And as you can see by this slide, about 88 or 89% of everybody is food secure. That means you've got plenty of food to eat. Versus the purple and the blue areas here, representing anywhere from 3 to about 0.6 for children. These are people that don't have enough food to eat. Your body needs over 45 nutrients every day. These nutrients are essential for health, and they must be provided in the foods eaten. 5 classes of nutrients are carbohydrates, proteins, fats, minerals, and vitamins. And then, of course, you have also the micronutrients, and we have the minerals that are have to be consumed in enough adequate doses to make sure that they don't create any shortages or deficiencies. So a nutrient overall is said to be essential if it's obtained from an external source and one that cannot be synthesized by the individual person. Calories, 3 different calorie providing nutrients, or carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. I want to make sure you note that alcohol is not a nutrient. It can't be used by the body. It's only a toxin that's broken down as energy and converted to fat. So 1 gram of alcohol equals 7 calories. And the term calorie, by the way, came about in the early 1800s by Nicholas Clement, and it was a unit of heat. In most fields, of course, this is an archaic term now, being replaced by scientific units, and the term that most countries use now is the joule. However, in many countries, including the U.S., we still talk about calories. And calorie is a gram, or a small calorie is a gram calorie, and it's approximately equal to the energy needed to increase the temperature of 1 gram of water by 1 degree centigrade. And if you were converting that, that'd be about 4.2 joules. What kind of animal are we? Well, herbivores are animals that get their food from eating plants and only plants. Omnivores can eat parts of plants, but generally only the fruit and vegetables produced by fruit-bearing plants. That's kind of an important distinction. These animals, the herbivores, include the ones I've got pictured here, like giraffe, elephants, rhinoceros, koala, deer, rabbits. Omnivores eat both plants and animals. Once again, generally only the fruits and vegetables produced by fruit-bearing plants. Humans are classified as omnivores, and the term means eater of everything. In reality, most omnivores typically eat things that are easy to get and provide adequate nutrition. That's why most of you will go to McDonald's or Burger King. Easy and almost adequate. What kind of animal are we? A carnivore? Well, the carnivores are meat eaters, and they derive energy from a diet consisting entirely of animal tissue. Whether they're hunting or scavenging, they consume small amounts of plant material, but they lack the physiology required for the efficient digestion of vegetable matter. So, obligate or true carnivores depend solely on the nutrients found in animal flesh. The domestic cat is a good example. So these dietary guidelines were developed to provide science-based advice for ages 2 years and older, including those at increased risk of cardiac disease. The target audience is policymakers, nutritionists, health professionals, and this was produced by USDA. How often is it updated? Once every 5 years. So these 2010 guidelines are right hot off the press. They describe the purpose, use, and the major concepts, including how individuals at high risk of chronic disease can change their diet to try and reduce the risk. The new components that they have decided to focus on are maintaining calorie balance over time and focusing on nutrient-dense foods and beverages. The term nutrient-dense is very important, and it plays a major role in these recommendations because to provide vitamins, minerals, and other beneficial substances with relatively few calories, they need to be nutrient-dense. So that means you reduce the solids and fats there, the solid fats, the added sugars, the refined starches, and the added sodium. You want to retain naturally occurring components, of course the dietary fiber. All vegetables, fruits, and whole grains, seafoods, eggs, beans, peas, nuts, all these things are considered nutrient-dense when prepared without fats and sugars. Nutrient-dense forms: regular ground beef, you can see 75%. If you take a look at the calories in nutrient-dense form of the food right here, 184. That means that the additional calories of fat are 52. Baked chicken breast, 138. When we bread and fry it, 108 additional for 246. Frosted cornflakes, well, here's your cornflakes at 90. Added sugars, 57 for 147 total. Curly French fried potatoes, one of my favorites, 117 calories. and 141 for the fat. Sweetened applesauce, 105 for the unsweetened applesauce, and then the added sugar to make it palatable to kids, 68 calories. And then fat-free milk, 83. And milk fat in fat-free milk, yeah, that's one of the issues that you have. So this is a good idea of how do we get to these nutrient-dense foods. Well, we need to balance calories to manage weight. The epidemic of overweight and obesity in these segments of our society is now becoming epic in proportion. Environmental factors contribute to weight gain. Calorie balance over time is going to be the key. Important modifiable factors are calories consumed and calories expended in physical activity. There is strong evidence for no optimal proportion of macronutrients for weight loss. Now, it's important to understand that the purpose of this study was to combine all the information out there. So if you go to the original reports and you read them on the USDA government website, you'll find that there are hundreds and hundreds of references of studies that the committee has taken a look at to adopt these recommendations. Top sources of calories among 2-year-olds and older. And this is where it starts becoming a very sobering amount of information to take a look at the sad state that our diet is in currently. Grain-based desserts, cakes, pies, cookies, cobblers, donuts, that is the #1 source of calories among Americans older than 2 years old. Yeast breads should probably be in the same category as the first ones. That's the second source of calories. We have chicken and chicken mixed dishes, chicken McNuggets probably, for the third item, fried and baked chicken parts, chicken strips, patties, stir fries, sandwiches, salads, and other mixed dishes. And then we get into the really nutritional stuff down here. #4 is the sodas, energy drinks, sweetened bottled water, including vitamin water. And finally, and this is amazing that we actually consider pizza a food. It used to be that pizza was just a special treat. Nowadays it's a primary source of our calories. And we're talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of about 98 calories per day we consume on pizzas. And by the way, those grain-based desserts, 138 calories. Yeast, bread, 129 calories. Chicken, 121 calories. And those energy drinks, 121 calories. 114 calories. So this is based on a total of about 2,100 calories a day. Well, we do have a few changes that differ by age group. For instance, alcoholic beverages are a major calorie source for adults. Sugar-sweetened beverages are a greater calorie contribution among adolescents, and this is the 2 to 8 age group. And fluid milk is the top calorie source for children younger than that. Principles for promoting calorie balance? Well, you're going to have to monitor food and beverage intake, physical activity, and body weight. Reduce portion sizes. When eating out, make better choices. And limit screen time. Well, what the heck is screen time? Well, of course, that means television, computers, video games, things like that, that reduce the amount of time that people spend being active. Key recommendations for balancing calories to manage weight? Well, you have to control calorie intake to manage body weight. For people who are overweight or obese, this means consuming fewer calories from foods and beverages. Increased physical activity, and that means reducing time spent in sedentary activities. And then you have to maintain the appropriate calorie balance during each stage of life, childhood, adolescence, and adulthood. Foods and food components. This is to reduce sodium, We want to reduce sodium to about 2,300 milligrams per day. And if you haven't actually calculated your sodium intake per day, you'll find that you're probably well over that amount. Further reduce intake to 1,500 milligrams per day for adults ages 51 and older, African Americans that are 2 and older, people aged 2 plus with high blood pressure, diabetes, or chronic kidney disease. The 1,500 milligram recommendation applies to half of the total population and the majority of all adults. Immediately and deliberately reduce the sodium content of food. That's what has to happen. This is the estimated mean daily sodium intake by age and gender. And you can see, I'm in this category right here. So the average male is consuming somewhere around 4,000 milligrams of sodium, and they'd like me to be right down here at about 1,500. For most of you out there in the 20 to 29 age category, somewhere between 4,000 and 3,000 milligrams a day. Here again, they want you down to about 1,500 milligrams a day for sodium. And this is the source of sodium in our diets. How many of you just throw salt right on top of your food? Well, turns out that it's not really the biggest source of sodium. You can see here, prepared foods, ready-to-eat cereals, rice and bean dishes, everything that we eat has salt in it. So we need to take a look at that. And while some foods are extremely high in sodium, the problem of excess sodium reflects frequent consumptions of foods that are only moderately high in sodium, such as breads. So how do we take care of that issue? Well, we have to read the nutrient facts on the label. We have to be concerned about how much sodium is there. We need to take a look at fresh foods that are less processed, and they're going to have less sodium. Eat more foods that are prepared at home when you have more control, and use little or no salt or salty seasonings when cooking and eating the foods. When eating at restaurants, ask that no salt be added to your food, and order lower sodium options if they have available. Foods and food components to reduce. Well, fats, that's one to reduce. Saturated fats or saturated fatty acids are less than 10% of the calories. You want to be less than 7% to reduce the risk of coronary diseases, cardiovascular disease, CVD, and you want to replace those with the poly and monosaturated fatty acids. Those are not with the sugar and refined grains. So you want to take care of reducing those. The trans fats, keep those as low as possible. Cholesterol, less than 300 milligrams per day. And the effect is small compared to saturated and trans fats. An egg yolk, up to 1 per day. Isn't that interesting? A few years ago, they didn't recommend any eggs at all. Now they're deciding, hey, eggs aren't really giving us the problem with cholesterol. So, of course, you only get cholesterol from animal products. Fatty acid profiles. You take a look at the different kinds of fats here. Saturated fats, coconut, palm, butter, beef, palm oil, pork, chicken, shortening, and margarine. Other kinds of oils, cottonseed, soft margarine, peanut oil, there's olive oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, and those things. So we have saturated fats, monosaturated fats, and polysaturated fats. And this slide helps clarify the rationale for the use of the concept of solid fats and oils versus other types. So the food sources of saturated fats looks very similar to the sodium, doesn't it? We have regular cheese, pizza, grain desserts, dairy, going around all the various food categories, and this is just the miscellaneous categories here. But these are all saturated fat sources. So the key recommendations. Reduce sodium. This is the overall key recommendations from that document. Reduce daily sodium to less than 2,300 milligrams and further reduce intake to 1,500 milligrams if you're over 51. Consume less than 10% of your calories from saturated fats by replacing them with monosaturated and polyunsaturated fats. Consume less than 300 milligrams per day of dietary cholesterol. Keep trans fatty acid consumption as low as possible, especially by limiting foods that contain synthetic sources of trans fats, such as partially hydrogenated oils, or by limiting other solid fats. Reduce the intake of calories from solid fats and added sugars. Limit the consumption of foods that contain refined grain, especially refined grain foods that contain solids and fats, added sugars, and sodium. If alcohol is consumed, it should be consumed in moderation, up to 1 drink per day for women and 2 drinks for men, and only by adults of legal drinking age. The government had to add that so they didn't get sued. So there's a call for action here. 4 major findings from this study that can be taken to help all Americans adopt health-promoting nutrition and physical activity. First, reduce the incidence and prevalence of overweight and obesity in the United States by reducing overall calorie intake and increasing physical activity. Second, shift to food intake patterns to more plant-based diets that emphasize vegetables, cooked dry beans, peas, fruits, whole grains, nuts, and seeds. In addition, make sure you increase the intake of seafood and fat-free or low-fat milk and milk products that consume only a moderate amount of lean meats, poultry, and eggs. The third portion of the 4 is to significantly reduce the foods containing added sugars, solids, fats, because these dietary components contribute to excess calories and few, if any, nutrients. Remember that term, nutrient dense. We want nutrient dense foods. In addition, reduce sodium and lower the intake of refined grains, especially refined grains that are coupled with added sugar, salt, fats. And fourth, make sure we meet the 2008 Physical Activity Guidelines for Americans. And if you take a look at any of these sources on the web, you can go to Dietary Guidelines, the USDA publication, and let's see if we can get that, dietaryguidelines.gov. So we're going to go there right now. And right there it is, very top one. Okay, so there's healthy.gov and the Dietary Guidelines for Americans. And then this is the document that we've just been taking a look at, is the Dietary Guidelines for Americans, and you can download the PDF, 2.9 megabytes, okay? And you can see all of the answers, all of the questions, and the entire document. The entire document is actually quite large. So this introductory part here is 112 pages. And we can take a look at this one, and this is just the very beginning. So after this is done, the actual studies that this was composed of is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 1,200 pages. Okay? So that's the 2010 Dietary Guidelines